All right, thank you, Director Wong. Welcome, everyone, to our pre-commission session with Jennifer Behringer, and she will give us a staff report for maintenance operations strategy going forward. Welcome.
Thank you. Very excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you, and we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Thank you.
There we go. So to kick things off, President May, Commissioners, I am Jennifer Behringer. I'm the Deputy Director of the Maintenance Division. Wanted to take an opportunity to talk to you about what's happening this summer. Since we canceled the chip seal season, wanted to give you assurance that our teams are going to be incredibly busy this summer. Just a little bit of background on the chip seal season. We tend to start out April and May picking up the zone preparations. We go through, clean out some of the asphalt fixes that were done over the winter time and make more permanent fixes in advance of chip seal. And then we start operations. This year we were going to begin right after the Memorial Day weekend, and operations last for 3 months. The governor's stay-at-home order pretty much halted our kind of non-essential, non-emergency, non-safety related grade and utility operations for 2 months. So you can kind of see, just based on the months that we would have been doing the chip seal, we were pretty much down for those operations. And even though our teams were down, the backlog of work orders continued to grow. The call-ins didn't stop, the teleces didn't stop. We were able to get out and do the emergency and the absolute safety essential stuff that our crews needed to do to make sure that the roads were safe. But a lot of the non-essential nuisance kind of things got put onto the backlog. So as we move forward this summer, we have an opportunity not only to catch up on that backlog of those asphalt repairs and the work orders, we're able to get at some of the projects that we've had lingering on the back burner, some of them for years. We can take a look at the zones that we're moving into in the next couple of years and get ahead of some of the maintenance activities in those zones. And then we also have an incredible opportunity to take a step back and look at innovations that we can do now that we have the time and a little bit of bandwidth to look at those and what our standard operating procedures will be. And I'll go through all of these in a little bit more detail. To orient you to the way the presentation is going to go, I'm going to go through each of the areas, Adams, and then Cloverdale with both grade and utility crews, and just give you a snapshot in time of the work that we're looking at doing this summer. And some of these are items that we've already been able to get at. So we're already making progress, and that's exciting to see. It's really exciting to see the roads, our crews back on the roads doing what they do best. So just to start things off with Adams Grade, this just goes into a little bit of detail of what the grade and utility crews need to do, getting out, repaving some of those areas in the zones that we need to focus on. Preparation for Zone 2S. 2S would have been our chip seal zone for this year. So now that's postponed to next year, and we have a cascading effect. But as best as we can, if we can get ahead of some of those areas that require maintenance, we're hoping to be able to accelerate some of that next year. That goes to what I mentioned here on Zone 3, scouting areas that they can get out ahead of. So just repairs in those two zones alone, we're definitely looking at about 4 to 6 weeks of time just to catch up where we should have been back in May. But then looking out at some of the projects, some of these that I'm sure that you're very familiar with, things that you've seen citizens talk about a lot. Erosion is a big one. Shaw Mountain Road, there's a lot of work to be done on the erosion at Shaw Mountain Road. Also Bogus Basin Road sees a lot of that erosion. We're able to get out and regrade some of the shoulders and reshape ditches along the roadway sides to protect our infrastructure. Various sewer trench failures that have happened that we just haven't been able to get out and properly fix. So we're looking forward to those opportunities. We're also looking at roads and possible surface treatments to make some of the roads, dirt roads specifically, better. 8th Street extension is one that we're always up there grading, so we're trying to figure out, is there a way that we can make that dirt road a little bit better to withstand some of that erosion and the rutting and the washboard effect. And then,
Madam President.
Excuse me, Jennifer, Commissioner Baker?
Yeah, regarding 8th Street, I know we had, and I think, Scott, you were in on the meeting. We had a meeting, this was last, well, I can't remember. It was obviously before Jennifer came on board, but we had a meeting with Columbia Pulp. they have a polymer that we were going to try out on 8th Street. It created a little bit more ability for the dirt to stay in place. And we were going to try it out and test it for them. Unfortunately, with the coronavirus, they shut down and they don't have any polymer. However, they are going to be opening up soon. I don't know when the polymer is going to be available, but it's still an option for us in the future. Maybe even into the later of the summer. When things get really hot and really dry, this might actually prove to be very beneficial. So, I mean, I'm in contact with the guy that's in terms of who deals with the polymer from the pulp factory. So, you know, as soon as we find out when we're going to be able to get it, I'll get in touch with Jennifer and Scott and Lloyd and the others that were in that meeting and see if we can't get some of that. But I just wanted to bring that up as Jennifer was talking about 8th Street.
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. Jennifer, is this similar to the mix we used recently up there on Highland View regarding the dust abatement? We mixed a different solution in.
Commissioner
Is it
May,
similar to that?
Commissioner May, no. This is
Completely separate.
This is completely different.
Okay.
We are looking forward to having a test run on this, and as Commissioner Baker indicated, this was something that was brought back, Commissioner Baker, several months ago, correct? And that again, there was the issue of the gentleman having to shut down. But when he's ready, we're more than happy to provide a test opportunity for his polymer.
Oh, great. Good news. Thank you, Commissioner Baker.
Thank you. Since you did bring up the dust abatement, that's another area that we're looking at in the areas of alleys and a lot of the dirt roads. President May, specifically what we do is do a mag chloride treatment, and it helps reduce the dust that kicks up. And that's a treatment that we do pretty frequently on the roads to help prevent the dust. So along the lines with the alleys, that's another one that you'll see in my next slide. Alleys continue to be a source where citizens call in and have us come out and grade the alleys that we do keep under our maintenance schedule. And this is a snapshot of one of the things we did while we were down. For all of the calls and all of the teleces, we had Heather, who leads our administrative team on the maintenance side, was keeping track of everything that was getting called in, and she kept a very detailed backlog of work projects. This is just a snapshot from the 18th of March to mid-May just for the Adams Grade crew. So we're kind of terming this our COVID catch-up, but these were the work projects that continued to build on our backlog. And again, some of the common themes you'll see are the alley gradings, dust mitigation, and erosion, as well as a lot of the potholes that many of the potholes were taken care of still if they were creating safety hazards, but there were a lot that we still needed to get back on. So I don't want to go through each of the lines. The intent of this slide is just to really show you kind of all of the additional work that we are working to catch up on with the Adams Grade crew. And moving on to Adams Utility, again, the repairs that I alluded to in the previous slides, but then some of the projects that we're excited to get after. Some smaller ones that we've been in cooperation with, such as moving mailboxes on Bogus Basin Road, up to some of the bigger issues that we've had to hold on to for a little while. A lot of the concrete repairs and manhole collars that just are enough that it keeps us busy. So we're very excited to be able to get at those projects where otherwise we would have had our attention drawn to the chip seal. So we're very confident that getting out ahead of these, we're going to have fewer of this that will linger for next year, and we can focus on chip seal appropriately. And at the bottom of the slide, I just talk through a few of the outstanding work orders. And these are work orders that we track every month with our monthly metrics. So we're looking to draw that number down, because right now, just those work orders alone are over 2 months of work just to do those. So it's a great time for us to be able to get after that backlog and really put attention onto these things. And this is just a few of the COVID catch-up items for Adams Utility. For our Cloverdale Grade team, one of the things that we're really excited to get after is community programs. So out at Amity Road and Cloverdale Road, there are areas where the pathways aren't connected, so they're able to get out and do a little bit of work out there, correcting the existing deficiencies with those pedestrian connections, and make that area more livable for the residents there, so they can get out and walk safely. Another area that I'm very excited about are cul-de-sac repairs. Now, usually when we get going on the chip seal season, our Cloverdale Grade team really only has the bandwidth to do maybe 2 cul-de-sacs each year. Our backlog has grown to 6, and we're confident that with the time that we have, we can get after those cul-de-sac repairs and do proper repairs on those areas and get caught up. Pleasant Valley Road is another one that you may have seen a lot. In fact, I just drove the whole road last night, and the washboards they sneak up on us out there. And we're looking at a possible improvement to that road, again, as keeping it a dirt road, but making it more solid for the vehicles that go out there, some of them being the heavy vehicles that the military drives on there. And then Cuna Bridge is another one that we've had kind of on our backlog to fix. If we have the time and the bandwidth, we'd like to do a few housekeeping items. The Cloverdale Grade crew out at White Pit, there's a secondary containment pad and an asphalt inspection pad that we've been wanting to do out at White Pit to make operations out at that pit a little bit more efficient. And then Cloverdale Yard, not just Cloverdale, but Adams Yard as well. A lot of times we have to focus on the rest of our community before we can take the time to fix some of those asphalt repair issues that we have within our own yards. So if we have the time, definitely the decant pad we want to get at, there's a containment area, and then just the cracked asphalt. Again, as time permits and as resources permit, our priorities obviously are getting out into the community and doing the good work there. And
Madam President?
Okay, excuse me, Jennifer. Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Oh, before I forget, you got to the community programs part. Did that include completing the unfinished projects that were on that list from our budget session last year? Lloyd's
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, no.
Director Wong?
No, this does not include any of those.
Okay, but are they still going to be completed in the 2020 budget year as anticipated?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you. Just tying things up with the Cloverdale utility team, this also includes our bridge crew. A lot of utility projects that they're getting out and fixing. You can see the list there. Bridge projects that have some visibility as well. And then the community programs, the Plummer Road pedestrian bridge, they actually pretty much tied that one up last week. They've got a few run-ups that they, I think, need to complete, but that one came with some accolades from the Star Mayor, so we're very excited to be able to do those advancements for our community. And of course, we have the outstanding work orders for the utility team as well. A lot of sidewalk and curbing issues that we need to get after. We did take a look at crack seal season. So crack seal we tend to do in the winter time or fall when the temperatures start to get a little bit cooler. Where we kind of finished up with the 2020 year, we had all the crack seal completed for Zone 2S. As we roll back to Zone 2S next year, 2 South next year, we're going to need to go back and do some minor adjustments to fix any recracks that have formed. But we're looking at the other zones to get out ahead. Zone 3 we had gotten into a little bit, but we can get that one completed. And then looking into Zone 4 and Zone 5 as time and weather permits. And then, as I mentioned, fall is the ideal time just because of the air temperature and the ground temperature. And as the asphalt cools, that's when you start seeing the cracks get wider. So that's really the ideal time to get out and do that crack seal. So in the summer months when it's hot, we'll be able to do some of the other projects. And then as we roll into fall, we'll be able to focus again on crack seal season.
Madam President?
Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, Jennifer, don't we generally contract crack seal out?
A lot of the crack seal area we do contract out, but our teams are, they go in and do some of the finer touch points that either the contractor missed or needs to be just kind of hit one more time just in advance of the chip seal season. But we do.
So are we going to be letting a crack seal contract for this fall?
I think we are still using, if we're going to still use the contract this fall. Yeah. We don't have the resources to cover all of Ada County the way that we need to. So we do still rely heavily on the contract.
Okay, great, thanks.
And then just to tie things up, it's not just our grade crew and utility crew that are busy with chip seal season. We do use all of our resources. The Broom Crew is another resource that we use. They have to go out ahead of the chippers. They get the roads prepared for the chip, and then they come after and clean up the loose chip. So with them now not having to focus on chip seal, they're able to catch up on a few areas. While we were in our stay-at-home order, we were operating at 40%, and that was for the safety of our broom operators and using every vehicle that we had available. And then we had a few people who just needed to stay home during that time for their health reasons. So we're going to do a little bit of catch-up to get back to where we should be at this point in time, but then we're able this summer to get out ahead of a lot of the residential areas where most of the residentials we can really only hit once, maybe twice a year. So this is just another area where citizens call in a lot to get their streets swept. We're projecting out that we can hit every area at least 3 times in the residentials. And of course, all the downtown core is still has been a focus area through the entire time. With the Broom Crew also, we have this opportunity to do a proof of concept this summer, and we've gone out and gotten a couple of bids, and we'll be hopefully looking to do this summer, where you take a truck, and instead of just using a dump truck, it's a roll-off truck, and we would procure 5 of the bins, and you can see on the lower right corner of the slide, we would procure these bins that can roll off. And during chip seal season, if all proves well, what we would be able to do is pre-position those bins along the route, and then the sweepers would dump into the bins, and then we would use a single truck to pick those bins up and then haul them away, versus needing 5 dump trucks with 5 drivers. So we're looking at it, we're looking at the feasibility, if it's something that will work for us. We'd be looking at doing some operating procedures for that. But if this does work the way we've seen in other jurisdictions, one of our crew members had used this when he lived in California. His crew used the roll-offs. It was very successful for them. So we're looking at that as a possibility moving forward for ACHD as well. And then, of course, our other teams, I don't have slides on them, but the vegetation crew, they're usually during chip seal season getting out and taking care of a lot of the trees that are overhanging the roads in preparation for that. So they're focusing now on getting, once we've reconstituted now that sheriff labor detail, they're getting out to take care of the weeds and the other trees that have overgrown in this great growing season that we've had with the rain and warmth and rain and warmth. So very excited to get forward movement on everything again. Our teams are almost back at full strength. So it's a great time to be in ACHD. It's a great time to be out getting maintenance on the roads. And we love everything that we can do for our community and love to give back. So, Commissioners, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jennifer. Really impressive presentation and update. Really happy to see that we're able to jump in and take care of some of that backlog going forward. Commissioners, any questions for Jennifer?
Yeah, I have a question.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. This is fantastic. I really appreciate the detail and sort of being able to shift with the change from the chip sealing. I particularly appreciate that as you're getting into an area, identifying this pedestrian project, community project, where there's some connections that could be made when you're out there with your crew, your grading crew, your utility crew, your bridge crew. You can move forward and at least putting parts of those in. I was wondering on the Broom Crew and then on the street maintenance, there's a growing number of routes that are too narrow for the big sweepers. The Shamrock Bike Lane, for example, the Federal Way multi-use path, and increasingly we're going to have these protected bike lanes, physically protected, narrow. Is there an effort to increase the number of vehicles like small skid steers or maintenance vehicles that can ensure that those are swept and kept clear as well, so that they can be functional as a commuter corridor for walking and biking?
Yeah, that's absolutely an area, President May, Commissioner Hanson, that we've been looking at because of the protected bike lanes, those multi-use paths. It's a question that I've been asking. There are smaller broom equipment options available that we've been researching, so it's definitely an area that we're looking at.
Yeah, I think that as that continues to grow, the more we should look into doing that, because if they function as an effective commuter corridor, they take the demand off of the roads. The other, I was wondering, when we do an analysis of some of these roads, I noted like Shaw Mountain Road, Dry Creek, Cartwright, all of them we've had teleses, we've had individuals talk about speeding along those. Is there some cross-check to see whether in the maintenance and the work that could be done, that there might be something that could add to the safety as well? Painted lines that could be slightly different, concrete repairs where we're repairing concrete. Could the curbs be extruded a little to address speeding, or crosswalks? We've seen reports of raised crosswalks with where the asphalt is raised up, and so that if you're going the speed limit, it's fine. But if you're exceeding the speed limit, then you run into a problem. It's sort of like a hybrid type speed bump. So do we cross-check where we have these needs, safety needs, with also the maintenance needs?
Commissioner May, Commissioner Hanson, the short answer to that is yes. There is integration that goes across those aspects. Going back to your initial great point of additional equipment, when we did start putting in the protected bike lanes and such, we have been looking forward on the right type of equipment that will service those appropriately. At the end of the day, it's called funding, and we are more than happy to come to the Commission with those requirements and requests, and then it'll be over to you as to whether or not you will want to support that or not, sir. But yes, we do look at those.
Very good.
So Jennifer, just to follow up on Shaw Mountain Road, Dry Creek, Cartwright, I know we've had requests to put some speed management on those roads. Do you know if some of our analysis in terms of maintenance will be to integrate some of those?
Commissioner May, Commissioner Hanson, direct answer to your question is that's not a maintenance function, but yes, it is discussed with the team as they look at future projects in the integrated 5-year work plan, those sort of things. But that is not a maintenance function.
Yeah, I just know that folks, as they're looking at, say, Shaw Mountain Road getting some maintenance, that they also have issues with people speeding down the hill. And this might be an occasion where our maintenance and our programs, just like you pointed out, Jennifer, the pedestrian connections are being integrated into the maintenance so that we only go in there once and we're not ripping it up twice. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Commissioners, any other questions?
Yes, Madam President.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
My question has mostly to do with the finances on this. We had so much budgeted for chips and oil. And I know we don't have to factor anything or hardly anything into this change for labor because that was factored in elsewhere in our budget last year. But where is the X number of millions of dollars going to show in what we need for these alternate maintenance projects this summer?
Commissioner May, Commissioner Goldthorpe, I'll take a swing at that. The savings of $1.22 that we No, we'll be coming to the commission shortly with a complete package that says, here's what we believe will be certain non-spent items in certain areas. Here are our recommendations on how to allocate those items, and then it'll be over to you. But you'll be seeing that very, very shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Wong. Any other questions for Jennifer? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Jennifer. That was an excellent presentation. We appreciate it. And kudos to your team for getting out there in front.
And commissioners, you have about 5 minutes before you start your session at 11:45.
All right. Thank you, Director Wong.
All by yourself?
I'm by myself today.
Well, we don't have anything that's going to attract people, so hopefully it's not too bad.
Well, so Stacy's out doing the Zoom. So she's been, but I don't think that is.
Yeah, yeah, I don't think we'll get very many people.
Yeah.
Hi, Clancy.
Hi, Clancy. Welcome.
Commissioner May, it's now 11:45.
After, or at 5, that's fine. All right, welcome everyone. We'll continue on with our pre-commission agenda. Are there any general housekeeping items or concerns that any commissioners would like to bring up?
Madam President, I would ask.
Hanson?
Yeah, I'll ask that we move item 3 to the regular agenda.
Right, and we'll have you do that when we come to that,
Thanks.
when we're adopting the agenda. Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. All right, anyone else? All right, any other comments about the agenda other than Commissioner Hanson? All right, Director Wong, back to you.
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioners, again, good morning. A couple things to share with you today. This last week, I joined Commissioners May and Goldthorpe and Commissioner Goldthorpe with Zoom meetings with the mayor and several other staff members of Meridian and CUNA. Just as a brief summary of the key points and such. First off, for Meridian, the mayor's priority continues to remain the requested Linder overpass, and he has future considerations for South Meridian. We had there was a good discussion on that and such, but again, key point was his focus is on Linder. Of interest, because he is focused on South Meridian, we have recently received the first development applications for the large Brighton development at Lake Hazel and Locust Grove. We will schedule those meetings with the commission for commission action on the July 8th meeting. It's scheduled right now to go to Meridian P&Z on July 9th. For CUNA, the mayor and his staff shared their vision of their proposed urban renewal district partnership with the Ada County Highway District. I will, from my perspective, and of course over to Commissioner Goldthorpe, it was well thought out, and I think CUNA is really on the correct path on how to do a urban renewal district and such. And as a matter of fact, they'll be presenting their concept to the commission in the near future, just as a starting point to ensure that the commission is well aware of what it is they're looking at and and how they'd like to partner with the Ada County Highway District. They made very pertinent emphasis on that the dollars within the urban renewal would be specifically focused on roads and infrastructure. And so when we'll be coordinating with their team next week to have them come visit you and make their presentation. Commissioners May or Commissioner Goldthorpe, did I leave anything out from both the Meridian and the CUNA presentation?
Not to my knowledge.
No.
It was a great meeting yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Madam President?
Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that CUNA. So the money that they will get from the tax increment financing, they will spend on roadways? Is that what you said?
Yes, Commissioner May, Commissioner Baker. Yes, that was the focus. They've done a lot of good homework on this. I'll call it their 100,000-foot plan. Looks, again, very promising, well thought out. And that's the partnership they want to have with the Ada County Highway District. So they are working also with ITD. There's a road structure in there that may be impacted, that ITD owns and such. But again, that was their focus, and they made several assurances. Again, Commissioner Goldthorpe, correct me if I'm speeding on this, that dollars there would not be going to facilities. They'd be going to infrastructure and roads.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to know what the definition of infrastructure is, but okay.
Yeah.
I guess you'll be bringing this to us?
Yeah, I can tell you what they said. It would have been like sewers. I mean, basic infrastructure.
Okay.
Yep.
And Commissioner Baker, I understand it, I'm sorry, Director Wong, that we're going to be having a work session with them so that they can present more to us. Is that
That is
correct?
correct. We're going to
right.
coordinate that next week for a time not too far in the future. I believe their formal adoption for their urban renewal district proposal with their city council and city members is in December. So they are well ahead of the curve, and they really want to sit down and share their thoughts with all of you, and then again move forward in partnership. As Commissioner Goldthorpe said, it was a great meeting. Okay. Tomorrow, I'll be myself and several staff members will be participating in the BSU Transportation Zoom Conference Study Update. As you recall, this was chartered by the governor months ago to update the 2010 transportation study as to what are the recommendations for Idaho to invest annually in Idaho's transportation infrastructure. This is scheduled for Thursday. I believe this is either the final update or the one prior to that before they go back to the governor and provide him not with specific recommendations but with options for the legislature to consider. Again, the emphasis of this is there would be no specific recommendations but different options for the legislature to review with the governor. And where that stands at this point, I'll brief you when that information comes out. For all of you, your budget books will be delivered and ready to go on 1 July, because as you know, on 8 July we start the first series of introductions to the 21-22 budget. And then we are preparing a work session for you in the first part of July, first meeting in July, to talk about what developers co-op agreements mean and what we would recommend thinking about from the commission as we go forward. Gary Inselman will lead that, but I think it'll be a great discussion regarding what may have occurred in the past, what may have been successful, what wasn't, what the conditions were, and what considerations that you might want to have going forward when it comes down to how the Ada County Highway District and developers can potentially partner in developing infrastructure and intersections. Again, that'll be in the first week of July. We received notice today that Boise City will be moving their fireworks display to the fairgrounds. And so we are coordinating with all of the different groups right now to ensure that we provide the appropriate traffic control and all the needs as appropriate for that. So with that being said, that's it for you. Do you have any questions for me at this time?
Commissioners, any questions for Director Wong? Seeing none, Director Wong, thank you very much, and looks like another short break before we start our meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott was working on that. I didn't have, no, I wasn't given anything. I don't have it. Okay.
Commissioner May, it is now 12 o'clock.
All right, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. I would like to call our June 10th Commission meeting to order, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Wong.
Thank you. If you'd all please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to start our meeting today by welcoming 2 new members to our ACHD team. You can call your attention to the screen. So on behalf of the Commission, welcome first to Cynthia Rasavage. She will be with Development Services. And on an interesting note, Cynthia has been part of ACHD on 2 separate occasions as a temp, and now she will be back with us as a full-time member. Her interests do include cooking, traveling, and being with friends. And we look forward to having you on the team, Cynthia, and welcome to you. Also, please help me welcome Mr. Ben Stoneman. He will be a traffic technician. His interests include board games, chemistry, and robotics. So on behalf of the Commission, welcome to both of you. We look forward to working with you, and welcome aboard. Always great to welcome new team members. So our first item on our for business today is to adopt our agenda. Is there a motion?
Moved.
All right. Commissioner Arnold moves to adopt the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Goldthorpe seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless noted.
Madam President,
Commissioner Baker.
I move approval of the consent agenda with the exception of number 3, which will move to the regular agenda.
All right. We have a motion by Commissioner Baker. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Hanson seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Now on to our regular agenda. We have item key number 19847, FY 2020 Capital Maintenance Project Phase 3, State Local Agreement with Idaho Transportation Department. And this is a request for approval. Commissioners? Or staff, are we going to hear from staff?
Yes, can you hear me, President May?
Yes, there. I was just looking at Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Sorry about that.
All right, thank you.
I'm sure I can share the screen correctly.
Thank you very much.
So I'm remoted in. Let's see. Is the presentation up?
Yes.
Awesome. For the record, my name is Cody Holman. I am the ACHD Project Manager for the FY 2020 Federal Aid Capital Maintenance Projects Phase 3.
Okay.
We are here for, thank you, to discuss the construction state and local agreement with the Idaho Transportation Department, and this is a decision briefing. Just to talk more about why we're here, the construction state local agreement, as stated, this project is federally funded with a total agreement amount of just over $514,000 with an ACHD match of just over $28,000. The project scope is pavement preservation and ADA compliance. Currently, the project just includes removing the asphalt and repaving Waihe Street. No headramps needed to be replaced. The schedule is for construction to start this year, and sorry, there's a typo there. Construction should be complete by FY 2021, not 22. Just another overview of the project limits. Waihe Street from Orland Road to Cherry Lane, up on the bench by Whitney Elementary. And the staff recommendation is to approve and sign the construction state and local agreement. And I will sit for any questions.
All right, Cody, thank you very much. Now, commissioners, comments, questions for staff?
Madam President.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, just a question for Cody. In the contract, it's a three-part contract between the state, the feds, and ACHD as the sponsor. Would it be possible to add language so that part of the maintenance analysis regarding the roadway, surface, etc., to do an analysis of what might be needed to address speeding concerns on that segment?
Madam President?
Who's that?
I don't see who that is. Is that Mr. Wallace?
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, Dave
Hi.
Wallace, Deputy
Mr.
Director of
Wallace.
Plans and Projects. Short answer to Mr. Hansen is no. This project is 100% designed at this point, ready to rock and roll. Such an action at this point would delay the project and jeopardize the funding that we'd be getting from the federal government.
Could I ask Mr. Wallace then, in what way jeopardize funding? I just was reading through the U.S. Department of Transportation's regulations to see whether this kind of thing could be allowed, and actually it says it encourages agencies to go beyond the minimum requirements and proactively provide convenient, safe, and context-sensitive facilities that foster increased safety used by bicyclists and pedestrians. The context of this road, we have had reports of speeding. It is by an elementary school. We do have hopes to put community projects on that and on NESPERS to address safety. And it seems to me that if we're digging up the road, why can't we do some of that, especially some simple stuff like raising the crosswalk, the intersection, putting a higher level of asphalt, for example, so that cars can't speed through that. Or actually, there's four-way stops, so it might be at another intersection to reduce speeds and prevent racing through the stop sign. So there's some things that seem to me ought to be pretty simple, and that U.S. Department of Transportation actually does encourage agencies to include these into their projects. And so that would be my main concern. Why would the feds object to this? And then the second question would be, if we don't do anything and yet move forward with trying to push for traffic calming features, extruded curbs, maybe some raised crosswalks in community projects, would we then have to rip up the new pavement which we just put in, or maybe take out some pedestrian ramps, some ADA accessible ramps that we've just put in order to put the speed management features?
Thank you, Commissioner Hansen. Mr. Wallace?
Madam President, Mr. Hansen, thank you for pointing out that the closest intersection to Whittier Elementary is in fact a four-way stop. So just for completeness, this was completely considered. Again, there was no speed study done as such. However, in the inception of this project, it was considered by our traffic folks whether or not this was a candidate for traffic calming based on speed, and the answer was no. So, and to answer your question more directly about the federal government, no, you're absolutely right that they do encourage us to do this. Your team actually did consider this. The intersection at Nez Perce and Waihe was rebuilt in 2016 with a project that was done there, and that particular intersection is not to be touched with this project. While this is laudable, this is a maintenance project for this portion of the road. Traffic calming on this road of the nature that you are requesting would require hundreds of signatures from all of the residents there. We have heard nothing from either the school or the residents that show concern about this. In fact, the only concern from the then elementary school president, principal, was about staging the construction and the construction itself, storage on site. The jeopardization that I'm referring to has to do with timing. So this is an FY20 project. This was designed to federal standards. We had always intended for this to be paid for, if necessary, with local funds. Our federal funds finder was able to allocate funds, to find some federal funds for this, and consider this maintenance project a bargain for the citizens of Ada County at only $28,000 contributed.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Commissioner Arnold?
Thank you. in reading the report, it says that we have to obligate these funds by July 31st, or have to have the commitment in place by July 31st. And if we don't, that we would have to reimburse the state for some cost. Do you know what that amount is that we would pay out of pocket in addition to losing the federal funding?
Madam President, Commissioner Arnold, I'll bounce that back at Cody, who may know the answer.
Thank you. Cody?
Yeah, President May, Commissioner Arnold, excuse me. We did receive around $50,000 in federal funds for the design as well, and we would likely have to repay all of those funds.
Did you say 50,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And that would be in addition to losing the $500,000 of the funding that would be associated with this project. That's correct? If not signed, sealed, and delivered by the 31st of July.
President May, that's correct.
And Madam President, if I might add, that's assuming the federal government disagrees with additional language, and that we're incapable of reaching agreement over the next 2 months by the end of July. So the assumption is we can't make it work, then we lose the funds. Is that correct?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, that's correct.
Cody. Okay.
Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Wallace?
Madam Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Do we have any?
We do have a person of the public would like to testify.
All right. Stacey, do you have the information?
Mr. Kostlik.
Mr. Kostlik, welcome. If you could please state your name and address for our record.
Thank you, Commissioners. Don Kostlik, 1632 South Riverstone, Boise 83706. Regarding the statements, and it might just be something to have your folks confirm in the field related to no curb ramps needing to be replaced with this. It appears that when the original sidewalk was built on Owyhee, at least south of Nez Perce, there are 4 intersections that have diagonal curb ramps, Cherry, Targhee, Lemhi, and Palouse. And with diagonal curb ramps come additional ADA requirements for turning radius and flat areas that are there. And these things sometimes get missed in that because it's one of these odd, subtle nuances in these projects. So just bringing that up as I was looking at it on the aerials, it might be worth something double checking. Thank you.
Okay, we appreciate your input. Thank you, Mr. Kostlik.
Madam President?
Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, this would either be for Cody or Dave Wallace. Doesn't this project bring up to standards the ADA requirements?
Madam President, Commissioner Baker.
They make
yes.
improvements?
Yes, it does.
Mr. Wallace?
Yeah, Madam President, Commissioner Baker, yes.
Thank you.
Right. Ms. Spencer, does anyone else wish to comment on this from the public?
We are good.
Okay. All right. Commissioners, any further questions or comments?
No, but I'm prepared to make a motion.
Commissioner Arnold?
Thank you. I move that we approve this item and authorize a signature on the agreement. It seems clear to me that to do otherwise would just be not an efficient use of taxpayer dollars.
All right, Commissioners, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Arnold made a motion. Commissioner Baker seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes, Madam President.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yes, this again, I raised concerns that we have siloed our work and not considered something. And I recognize we've done this in the past, and I think it is time to change because in this neighborhood I'm very familiar with, there's a lot of rentals and low-income families. Those kids are just as important. Collecting signatures may be very difficult because of rentals. You have to actually get the owners to sign. They may not know that that's the hurdle you have to jump over. I think this agency, the federal government, and the state are perfectly capable of making a modest adjustment to this agreement, because it might only be a modest addition to ensure the safety of that street. We do know there's speeding. I have asked, and they said yes, people do exceed speed limits. In fact, it's the times when there's fewer cars around, and they will sometimes blow right through that intersection. It is unfortunate that in 2016 we didn't build extruded curbs in 2016 to add to the safety, but the other is the point that you can do an ADA ramp, but if there's speeding along a road, people with disabilities don't feel comfortable going there, and it just doesn't feel safe as well. You can technically have an accessible ramp, but if there is a speeding, and we do have evidence that there's speeding, I think this is a modest change, and I do have confidence in our staff, in the federal government staff, and in the state in order to make this adjustment. And I recognize that it's easier just to go ahead and put this into community programs and let it come up in the due course of things. We'll redo that pavement and the intersection if we need to down the road. But in the meanwhile, kids are walking along those roads. I think we can do things in a much, much more integrated way. And this is a good way of doing that. And I'd like to raise that and ask for that to be done. And we have time. We have until the end of July.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Commissioner Hanson. Commissioner Arnold, further discussion?
That was actually Commissioner
Arnold,
Baker, but I have a comment too, but she can go first.
We'll go Commissioner Baker.
Thank you. I just want to say that I'm going to support the motion. I think that leveraging over $500,000 with $28,000 or so of local money is absolutely the best thing that we can do for our taxpayers. And I have to say that I think it's just a little disingenuous for Mr. Hanson to insinuate that the ACHD staff or commission doesn't really care about poor people. I just find that disheartening, and I think it's absolutely inaccurate. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. Now, Commissioner Arnold.
Thank you, and I would agree with what Commissioner Baker just said. To this commission and to our staff, all children are important regardless of their socioeconomic situation, and I think Commissioner Hanson was out of line in implying otherwise. I also I disagree with Commissioner Hanson's characterization that we have siloed our way of doing business here. I don't think that's the case at all. Staff did look at traffic calming. We have had some analysis of the situation out there, so it was not something that was ignored. But it's very important for us to be able to complete this project, get those ADA improvements put into place, and utilize federal funding. It would be foolish and not doing our jobs if we lost over $500,000 of federal funding, and then on top of that had to repay $50,000 that's already been expended. So I think it's important to move forward with this item for the safety improvements that we are going to gain with this project.
Thank you, Commissioner Arnold. I do want to say I do agree with the comments made about safety. I think our staff always has that in the forefront. I think they do a good job assessing and scoping before we move forward on these projects. I do agree with Commissioner Hanson's comments, and he has made them before, that when at all possible, and as we state all the time, it always comes down to the money, but that we pay attention and incorporate as many of the traffic calming measures as we can as we move forward on projects. It certainly makes more sense from a safety issue. It's cheaper to do things on the front end, and also less disruptive when we have to go back in and retrofit. However, that being said, this particular project, as Commissioner Arnold just stated, the chance of losing $500,000, a little bit more than $500,000, and the additional $50,000, this is just not something we can sustain or would be smart or would be exercising the proper fiduciary oversight with our dollars. So for those reasons, I too will be supporting this motion. Does anybody else have any comments?
Sure, I'll make one really quickly.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
I understand and sympathize with the desires that Commissioner Hansen voiced. My concern isn't necessarily as much as what everybody else discussed, but I don't think, from my experience working with government, that when there's 2, maybe 3 agencies involved, that you can get anything decided in 2 months. So this needs to stand as it is.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Goldthorpe. And with that July 1st deadline as stated by several today, that's just right around the corner. So any other questions, Commissioners, or statements?
May I make a request?
Commissioner Hansen.
Yeah, I can count. I would ask that at the very beginning that this agency scope, when it does the scoping, that we do speeding analysis, and that be on the front end. And so those conversations with the other agencies that we enter into agreements with know that we are aware of where there is speeding. We are aware of where there are children, a lot of children, where the schools are, and that because we're going to be more aware of it perhaps than the state or the federal agencies are, and that we scope those at the beginning. And it sounds to me that the state and the feds would support that and would incorporate that into the scoping so that we don't reach a point here where we've already come up with language for an agreement, and we know, because we know there's information from those neighborhoods on that, on Nez Perce, and on a number of other streets where people are concerned about speeding.
Thank you, Commissioner Hansen. I do just want to reiterate, I do believe staff does an excellent job, and they do take that into account. And whenever possible, if we can look at some extra measures or any of these other ideas at the beginning, that's the time to do it. And I think it saves money when we do it. It just does not work with this project. And again, I do support staff, their efforts, and their assessment of this project. So again, I will be voting in favor. But thank you very much. A lot of good comments. If there are no further comments, we will go ahead and you've got a motion before you. So I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
All right. Thank you very much. Motion carries. All right, and that moves us on to our last agenda item of public communications, and we do have a few individuals that have signed up to address the commission. First name that I have is Clancy Anderson. Clancy, welcome. If you could please state your name and address for our record.
Clancy Anderson, 1911 North 18th Street, Boise, Idaho.
Okay.
President May, Commissioners. Recently, the city of Boise received a score from People for Bikes that saw a big reduction on the area that talks about network connectivity. Both OpenStreetMap and Google do not have the best data, as can be seen by the lack of bikeways and rock bikeway. Google's a bit better, but still lacking key connections. I asked about this over a year ago, and staff did look at it and upload data to Google, but has never heard back. Regardless of any score, people don't use the ACHD bike maps to figure out the best routes. They use Google or another route finding app, which tells them the easy way and provides the route to follow. Or they track their rides on Strava, which uses OpenStreetMap as its base map. I believe ACHD or its consultants can purchase Strava data related to a project or study. Another reason for updating speed limits on a regular basis would be Harrison and 15th Street. Yet, on my phone and in my vehicle navigation app, it still tells me the speed limit is 30 miles an hour instead of 25 miles an hour. So in closing, I urge ACHD to make a priority to update their GIS data and whatever associated data with these various organizations for all the reasons listed above. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Director Wong, if we could have staff take a look at that and make sure that updates are taken care of.
On Commissioner May, Commissioners,
Sorry.
yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. All right, Cynthia Gibson.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the Commission. My name is Cynthia Gibson. I live at 2004 North 9th Street in Boise.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm here today as chairman of the Pedestrian Advisory Group. We submitted a request letter to the commissioners on June 3rd, and I'd like to just touch upon a couple points in that letter. It was in regard to opening streets for people. As you know, we're in an unusual time. Governor Little has said that social distancing is probably here to stay to help us fight this pandemic. The Greenbelt is experiencing its usual springtime congestion. It's hard to socially distance on the Greenbelt because of the volume of people and pinch points. We're also noticing that vehicle traffic volumes are not at the pre-COVID levels. And all of this presents a unique opportunity for us to look for additional space for pedestrians. I have heard people say that COVID is not spread when you're outside, but the articles that I read say that that is dependent upon remaining 6 feet apart and wearing a mask. So where are we today in Idaho? On the front page of the Press Tribune today, it says, as cases, healthcare worker infections rise, officials ponder stage 4 reopening. I expect you're all like me. I want to move to stage 4 and move beyond this. But we may not be able to quickly. And there's many cities around the world and the country that have been really proactive about this. I would recommend that if you'd like to go and see a list of all of the cities that have done something to help us with the spread of the pandemic, go to the website pedbikeinfo.org. It's an excellent source and has an exhaustive list of cities. Our recommendations as a committee were 4 streets. We recommended closing 1 lane going south on Capitol Boulevard to get people safely to and from the bench. Park Center Boulevard on the outside lanes in either direction to help alleviate some of the congestion on the Greenbelt, or Fairview or Main between 17th Street and Whitewater Boulevard. All of those streets could remain open to motor vehicles while a lane is dedicated to people walking and biking. But we are willing to discuss other options with you. Central District Health wrote a white paper. It's called Recommendation for Open Streets Model to Enhance Physical Distancing During COVID-19 Pandemic. And then there's also a great guide, the NACTO Guide, Rapid Response Tools for Cities, Relieve Crowded Areas, Parks, and Narrow Sidewalks to Support Health Department Guidance for Physical Distancing. The Pedestrian Advisory Group, it's a group of citizens. We're committed to our pedestrian safety for all of Ada County citizens. We'd welcome a discussion with all of you on the possibilities to close a travel lane or close a road to motor vehicles and open them for people. And we think now is the perfect time to have this discussion. We are all experiencing fatigue from this pandemic. Weather's improving, slight uptick in cases, and I think for our spiritual, mental, physical health, I think that would help all of the citizens greatly. So that's all I have. Thank you for your time today, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. As always, Cynthia, we appreciate it. Commissioners, any questions? All right, and we do.
I have one.
All right, Commissioner Goldthorpe.
I was wondering if there's anything official come down yet about how much the traffic has bounced back up since we entered, say, stage 3. I've been downtown a couple of times. Latest was this morning during the a.m. peak hour, and I was still amazed at how easy it was to get into downtown on the interstate. I didn't even have to slow down below about 55. So I'm wondering if we've heard from, number one, what the situation is as far as traffic, and number two, if we've heard anything from the city asking us for the same consideration. Thank you.
I know as far as the counts, we have not received any information showing an uptick. I don't know if Director Wong has any further information
Commissioner
specifically
May,
regarding Boise.
yeah, Commissioner May, Commissioner Goldthorpe, thank you. What we are seeing now is a huge surge back up in traffic operations. We are seeing a huge surge back to pre-COVID 19 areas of crashes. Just yesterday, within a 15-minute time frame, we had 5 major accidents going on. We've not received any requests from cities other than Boise's to support them, which we did on 8th Street on supporting restaurants and that sort of stuff. Our traffic engineers and TMC operators tell me that traffic levels are at normal operations at this time. Again, we've not done official counts across the board. And I will say this, we have also been looking very closely through our TMC, and it's not a 24-hour-a-day operation when we look at this, at the 4 streets, that the roadways that the Pedestrian Advisory Group asked us to consider. And I will share with you that as of yesterday, we have not seen an increase in pedestrian levels or bicycles or any type of congestion whatsoever regarding sidewalks that would hamper or impact social distancing operations. So that's where we stand now, just from an observation perspective, but we have not received any formal indication of traffic is at 88%, 87%, 100%. It's just what our team members are reporting to us. I hope that answers your question, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wong.
Yeah, I had heard through one media source that I don't even remember right now that we were within 11% of the pre-COVID traffic counts, but my eyes tell me that that's not so, at least not on the interstate.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldthorpe. Any other commissioners? We do have another individual from the public that would like to address the commission. Mr. Kostelek? I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. Kostelek. You correct me.
The first one was best. It's like
okay.
Thank you, Commissioners. Don Kostelek, 1632 South Riverstone, Boise, Idaho, 83706. I will say ITD has permanent counters on a couple of ACHD roads, and as of last Friday, Park Center was still only operating at about 9,000 vehicles a day versus ACHD's current online counts are up in the 20,000 range, and there's a couple there. So we're still trending below based on actual counts rather than anecdotal observations that are being done out there. So just to bring that up since it was discussed, what I did want to talk about is the construction zone options for pedestrians, and kudos to both the staff and especially Rachel Chipman for bringing that person aboard and the attention paid to that. It's certainly been noticed, and the improvements out there in construction zones in the last year to year and a half are definitely improving. What I'd like to ask you to consider, given what you're dealing with the chip seal and reallocation of money, is bolstering the inspection that takes place there. We did walk audit examinations in Meridian last week as part of a project and still came across a lot of issues related to construction zone compliance. And it's really a staff resources issue that I think can be rectified. I think in the past, some of the staff comments have been, we just don't have the resources to scan all those. And again, as Director Wong alluded to in the pre-commission meeting, that's a budget decision and something you can make. And so now might be the time to consider that. But I also wanted to bring it up in context of ADA and what the U.S. Department of Justice has said on that topic. And this comes out of an amicus curiae brief that U.S. Department of Justice issued with regard to an ADA lawsuit concerning Pennsylvania DOT about a decade ago. And it goes back to the need to put resources internally at ACHD to do these things. And they said in that one, this was a lawsuit concerning curb ramps, it would frustrate the purpose of Title II of the ADA to require persons to constantly monitor local projects. In fact, information about street improvement projects may not be readily available to the public is the reason for this. And things like your traffic control plans and even all the stuff being done in right-of-way doesn't show up on RETA. And so I would just ask you to take that to heart as you're into these discussions and help bolster the already improving work that's out there on the streets with regard to this, but there's still a lot to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Spencer, are there any other members that would like to address the commission?
We are good.
All right. We are
Madam
good.
Chair.
Hearing Commissioner Arnold.
Yeah, I just had a comment in response to Mr. Koselleck. I agree with him that it is very important that we continue to monitor our contractors to make sure that they are complying with the ADA requirements in construction zones. If we're not doing that, and I believe that we are, but if we're not doing it adequately, then we need to take a look at that.
And I think they are, and I think we've ramped up that type of coordination and inspections, which is so critical. So
Madam
we
President,
appreciate your comments. Mr. Price, welcome.
Just as a follow-up, I'm sure the Commission remembers that we're currently under ADA review with MIG. And as part of that process and part of that contract, they will be providing to the Commission a resource assessment of compliance with the ADA throughout the district, and we'll have a better idea when we get that report of the staffing levels and other resources necessary for ADA compliance.
Thank you, Mr. Price. That'll be a critical benchmark going forward. Appreciate the update. All right, anyone else?
One little teeny thing.
Just teeny tiny.
Don mentioned a project they were working on last week where they walked a lot of sites in Meridian. I was there one day with them. And the roundabout on Pine between Locust Grove and Eagle, all the construction surrounding that, we probably ought to look at. It was kind of a mess.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Goldthorpe. We'll make sure that's noted and staff can assess that. All right, anyone else? I don't want to cut anybody off. All right, going once. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. A lot of good conversation and updates. Jennifer, thank you again for your impressive update on projects. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Hey, Dave Wallace, you still there?
Yes.